Good morning, everyone. So, so you are discussing the module three, the classes, inheritance, and exceptions. So, till now in the previous classes, you have gone through what is classes and what is inheritance. In today's class, we're going for the chapter three. So that is exceptions, the last part of the module three. So, what do you mean by exception? So when it occurs, so what it is, everything details you are going to discuss in this particular chapter through the following videos. So what do you mean by an exception? So exception is a when you run a program, if you are getting any errors, so you have two types. One is a compile time error, the other one is the runtime error. So compile time errors can be shown and th- they are shown and they can be reduced or resolved. So any errors that you execute using control F9 or Java C filename.java, so it will show you where are the things you have done the mistakes. So those are called as a compile time errors and that can be eliminated. Example, missing semicolon or your use of printf in the wrong statement, scanf. So all these things we call it as compile time errors. If there are no errors, but the output what you are getting is different, so then you go for a runtime error. For example, you take an any arithmetic program, so the addition of two numbers. At that time, we will tell it as give the values a is equal to 1 and b equals 2. So you know our errors are there when you control F9. So when you go for running, giving the inputs and seeing the outputs. So you give a is equal to 1 and b equals 2. At that time, if you are not getting the correct output or no output is shown, at that time we call it as a runtime error. So that runtime error is called as an exception. So exception is an abnormal condition that arise in the code sequence. So code sequence, because of system properties, the program may not be run. So there will be no fault in your program written, but if the system is not capable of running that particular program, then we call it as exception. So this type of errors, this type of runtime errors cannot be shown. It will only, the cursor will blink. So as you all know, you will give the inputs and all, but if I know what the output you expect is not shown, then we call it as an runtime error or an exception. So how these exceptions can be solved? So handling of error, this type of errors during the execution of the program is known as exception handling. So how to handle the runtime errors? So that is the main concept what we will see, because this type of errors will not be shown by our compiler or any other softwares. So only compiler will show you what are the syntax errors or compile time errors you will get. So it will not show you the logical or runtime error. So runtime error is called as an exception. So come for this is the introduction. So what are all the exception types you are having? So exception types you are having, first is a class. All the exceptions are built in the class called throwable. The throwable is at top of the exception that includes exception as well as error. So error, here we consider error as a compile time error and this exception as runtime error. So runtime exception, we call it as runtime error, is also called as runtime exceptions. So in that, what are all the examples? Your types of runtime exception is, one is a SQL exception, IO exception, number format exception, array index out of bound exception, arithmetic exception. Like this, you will be having. So come for stack mechanism, runtime stack mechanism. So this type of errors I have already told you, those are not shown to the user that it contains this, the error is there at this particular line. So runtime errors are not shown by our program. So how to show? How to show the runtime errors that you are going through this particular concept by giving a concept called exception handler. So exception handler means, so if no errors are shown by our system, then exception handler will show you the errors. So that will be done by exception handler called as a default handler. Any exception that is not caught by your program will be processed by the default handler. Okay, so number of exceptions, everything we will see in the next coming slide. So except in order to handle the exceptions, we have following mechanisms that are fundamentals, use of following keywords. So these keywords are very, very important. So you have to understand this type of errors are not shown by our computer. You have to make sure that this error should be shown. ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಈ ಕಂಪೈಲ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಎರರ್ ತರ ಈ ತರ ಎರರ್ಸ್ನ ತೋರಿಸಲ್ಲ. ವೆನ್ ಯು ಗಿವ್ ದ ಇನ್ಪುಟ್, ನಥಿಂಗ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ದೇರ್ ಆನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್. ಅಟ್ ದಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ರನ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಎರರ್. ಸೊ ಇನ್ನು ಆ ಎರರ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಲೇ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇವಾಗ ಎರರ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಇವಾಗ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಯೂಸ್ 5 keywords. One is try, catch, throw, throws, finally. These are the very important concepts. So you can get one full question from this exception only. Okay, so program. So first you come. So where you get this type of errors, that code should be placed within the try block. Okay, so if it creates any exception, then that is to be thrown by our throw ಅನ್ನೋದು ಬರಬೇಕು. Throw will come ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಟ್ರೈ. ಯಾವ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟು ನಿಮಗೆ ಎರರ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಟ್ರೈ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಅಂತ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ. ಸೊ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದು ನಮಗೆ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಆ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಥ್ರೋ ಮಾಡೋದು ಯಾರು? ಟ್ರೈ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋರು. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಕ್ಯಾಚ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ಯೂಸರ್. So kindly understand these words. The program statement that you need to monitor for exception. That means monitor for runtime errors are contained within the try block. If the exception occurs within the try block, it is thrown. So once that error is thrown, then we have to, once it is thrown, you have to catch that particular exception. So your code can catch the exception and handle it. So for that you use the word try, throw, catch. Okay, if there are number of exceptions or more, then we go for the throw statement. Okay, so any clause, any code which is not a part of error is called finally put in finally clause. So any code that must be executed after the try block completes is finally put in the finally block. ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. So this is the general form of the exception. So first you have try. Inside that you give the block to monitor for errors, and that will throw you an exception. An exception. So that for that you are going to use catch exception type. So you can have a number of exceptions that so you are using multiple catch statements here, and finally the code which is not containing any error that are placed inside the finally block. So this finally block will work only after the try statement. So now come for the example, uncaught exception. That means the exception is not caught. You will not get either output or it will not show you any error. So that is the uncaught exception. So here you are taking a class name as a exception 0. Class name can be anything. Inside that you give a variable d is equal to 0, and now you show a is equal to 42 by d. So that means you are dividing a number 42 by 0. At that time what is to be done? So division is not possible. It should show you the division is not possible. Okay, that means you are going to attempt to divide a number by 0. So at that time you won't get either output or you won't get either an error. Okay, so the program will simply stop. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ರನ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಆಗಲಿ ಎ ಇಸ್ ಇಕ್ವಲ್ ಟು 0 ಅನ್ನೋದು ಬರಲ್ಲ, ಎರರ್ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಬರಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಅನ್ಕಾಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದೇರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ನಥಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಯು ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು, ಆ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕಾಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. Okay, you won't get either output or an error. So simply the cursor keeps on blinking. At that time this is called as an uncaught exception. So in order to make the output or an error to display, so you are going for this particular thing. So when you run this particular program, So it will show you exacting arithmetic exception divide by 0 at exe0 dot main. What is exe0? It is a file name, because class name and file name should be same. That is exe0 dot main. So under the main, under the line number 4, so under main 1, so it will show you line number 1, 2, 3, 4. So here is your exception. So where is the exception part? A is equal to 42 by D is the exception part what you are having. So this one will not be shown. So it will include that as a, you are having the arithmetic exception, that is divided by 0. It will not show you the output. Okay, so this is the default exception handler. It will show you this, but there is something related to output or an error. Okay, ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅದರ ಕೂಡ ಎರರ್ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ. So for that you go for this particular program now. So we have taken a class called exe1. Now under that you taken a main function subroutine d is equal to 0, a is equal to 10 by d. So what does it mean? A contain is going to have a value or an error. That is, you are dividing a number by 0. So divide by 0. So that includes the main function by running a class called method. So what's a class? exe1 dot subroutine. Subroutine is a method. When you run this, you will get an error like this. So that is, it will be handled by default handler. So it will show you java.lang.arithmetic exception divided by 0 at subroutine 4, subroutine 7. So this is the particular, when you execute this one, this is line number 7 and this one is line number 4. So when you run this particular code, you will be getting an exception under line number 4. So this is the, this first code as well as this code both are same, but here you are not directly you are given, but here you are called through an object. Okay, so how to handle these exceptions? So it will be handled by defaultly, but if any user want to handle the exception of his own, so then you are going for exception handling using try, catch, block. So exception handling can be used by placing your exception code into the try and finally throwing the exception through that will be executed through catch. So that we will understand in the next coming thing. So two benefits are there. It allows you to fix the error and prevents the program from terminating. So ಇದು ನಮಗೆ ಆ ಎರರ್ನ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ನ ಟರ್ಮಿನೇಟ್ ಆಗೋದನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so in order for that, what are all the things you should do? So first thing, enclose the code that you want to monitor. ಯಾವ್ದು ಎರರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ ಯಾವ್ದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದು, ಅವರು ಟ್ರೈ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದು. Immediately after that try, a catch clause should contain, because inside the try you will have throw. So once the exception is thrown from the catch try block, so you have to catch that particular thrown statement. So for that you should have immediately a catch clause should be specified. Once the catch is specified, so once the exception is thrown from the main, so program control transfers out of the try block to the catch block. So catch is not called, so whenever execution never returns to try block from a catch. So once the catch is executed, then similarly the program control continues with a code executed in final block. So here is an example of original try and catch using exception. So for that you take a class exe2, take a main function, two variables d and a. So where you are getting an error, divide by 0, place that code inside that try. So inside that try you are taking d is equal to 0, a is equal to 42 by d. So this is going to create what? It is this particular statement is going to create an exception. So once the exception is there, it is going to throw. So this a is being thrown. What you are going to throw? an exception is being thrown. So what type of exception it is? It is an arithmetic exception. That is, you are having an exception through divide by 0. So once the exception, arithmetic exception is thrown, so immediately after the try block, you will be having a catch block. So you have to catch what? An exception, that is arithmetic exception. So that we are, so catch, so exception object is E and type is data type ಬಂದು exception, arithmetic exception object ಬಂದು E. So at that time we are going to give system.out.println divide by 0. So when you go for the previous end code, it will show you like an error, that is java.lang divide by 0. But now rather than taking that, you are simply catching the particular exception and printing your own statement. That means you are handling the exception now. So that will be given by system.out.println division by 0. So after, immediately after the try closes, the catch should come. ಓಕೆ, ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಟ್ರೈ ಆಗಿದ್ದೆ ಕ್ಯಾಚ್ ಬರಬೇಕು. ನಾವು ಈ this is the error that is shown by you. So because you are going to handle the exception now. So after the catch, you can give any other statements that we are giving it as system.out.print after the catch statement. So when you run this particular program, the output you will get. So first you come for try, assign a value 0 to D. Now when you get the exception a underline a is equal to 42 by D, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಎರರ್ ಬಂತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇರೋ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಯಾವುದು ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. So because you are getting a error in the previous, so remaining what all the statements are there, that will not be printed. So once this contains an exception, so it is going to throw that exception, and that exception is being catched by catch statement. That is, inside the catch you are giving an object type E. E is an object that catches the exception thrown by try. So that is going to print. So the catch statement, catch block, you will be having one printable statement, what error you are having. So that is system.out.println divide by 0. After the catch, you are having a number of statements that can be executable. Okay. So that is the explanation what you are going to give here. Notice I have told when the exception will occur, the any statements after that error will not be printed. So that's why we are telling it here. Print ln inside the try is never executed. Once the exception is thrown, the control transfers out of the try into catch. So hangagi exception ellu barutto, you won't get any statements executed inside the try block. So catch. After that, the catch is not called, so execution never returns to try from catch. So that's the line. This will not be printed, is not displayed. Once the catch is executed, the program control continues with the next line in the program after the try and catch. So catch statement cannot contain any exception thrown by any other try statement. ಸೊ ಅದರ ಟ್ರೈ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಅದ್ರದ್ದು ಕ್ಯಾಚ್ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಟೈಪು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಕ್ಯಾಚಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಟೈಪು ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯು ಆರ್ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಬೈ 0. ಸೊ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಬೈ 0 ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್, divide is a arithmetic exception. So catch should supposed to take only arithmetic exception only. Okay. So after that, now you come for the next program. So next program, here you see handle the error. Main function, you have taken 3 variables a, b, c. So random number r is equal to new of random. Random number will be generated automatically. Inside try, you have taken b is equal to random dot next int. So randomly any value will be stored in b as well as c. But when you execute this one, 1 2 3 4 5 divided by b by c. So what you b is initially b is 0 divided by c is 0. 0 by 0, you will be getting 0 only. But when you divide that 0 with this 1 2 3 4 5, you will be getting divide by 0. So what it is, where you getting the error, that is in a is equal to 1 2 3 4 5 by b by c. So now you are going to catch the arithmetic exception e, that is divide by 0. So, okay, after that, now you are going to execute the program. So now you come for the next topic, displaying a description of an exception. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಅದ್ರ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಅದು ಕೇಳೋದು. ಸೊ ವೇರ್ ಯು ಗಿವ್ ದ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಎನ್ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್, ಸೊ ಐದರ್ ಇನ್ ಟ್ರೈ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ಕ್ಯಾಚ್. ಸೊ ಟ್ರೈ ವಿಲ್ ಥ್ರೋ ಅನ್ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್, ಥ್ರೋ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು ಯಾರು, ಟ್ರೈ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್. ಅದನ್ನು ಕ್ಯಾಚ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಯಾರು, ದ ಯೂಸರ್. ಸೊ ನಾವು once the user catches that exception, now you are going to describe an exception by using throwable. So throwable is the method that gives a description of an exception. You can display the description in the println statement by simply passing the exception of an argument. For example, the catch block in preceding program can be written as catch arithmetic exception print. You can take, rather than giving divide by 0 your one statement, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಥ್ರೋ ಆಗಿರೋ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ನ ಹಂಗೆ ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ same concept, arithmetic exception E, but while printing you can take exception plus E. Rather than giving divided by 0, now you are going to give exception plus E, that is A is equal to 0. So when that means the exception that is thrown by the try block will be catched here, and that exception only you are going to print. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಿಸಾಕಿರೋ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅದನ್ನ ಹಂಗೆ ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಥ್ರೋನ್ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ E. So that thing you are printing here plus E. So when you give the plus E, it will show you exception. This exception is this part. So plus E means that is java.lang.arithmetic exception divided by 0 ಅಂತ ತೋರಿಸುತ್ತೆ. So this is the thing. Next you come for multiple catch clauses. So that is the bit lengthier. So first you understand this particular concepts, and if any doubts you can ask me. Okay, so keep reading. Now and all you will be having 2 lectures per day or 1 lecture per day. I will be keep on updating. So kindly understand the concepts and prepare for the internals. Okay, I will be ending this class today. Okay, thank you.